thing. Showing your expression and making things and being creative. It's a picture that you make. Something you do on a piece of paper. I think of art as something that you make and it expresses yourself.
What do you think art is?
Do you know any artists?
Have you ever talked to an artist?
Have you ever thought you'd like to be an artist?
Well, you can.
Right here in Addison County.
Many of our neighbors choose the arts as their profession and way of life.
From painters,
to writers,
to musicians,
to potters,
to jewelers,
to craftsmakers,
to photographers.
The list goes on and on and on.
But enough of us talking.
Let's listen to some of our creative friends who express themselves with their hands,
eyes,
words,
and minds,
and find out what life is like as an artist.
Here in Addison County.
It's really important for me to be around things that have been made by people who've really loved doing what they're doing. It's so much different for me drinking out of a cup that a friend of mine has made than drinking out of a cup that's been manufactured in a factory in China. Adds a little love to my life. And that's what it's all about. I have a friend who says it's all about love. And I believe that's true.
Music is, it seems like it's this, like a puzzle. It makes, it gives me this challenge of putting together pieces, either seeing the whole parts and then putting it together, or seeing what's there.
A lot of people think that because you're an artist, you do it for fun. Well, you know, that may be right when you're 6 or 7 years old, you know. I mean, I certainly thought it was a heck of a lot of fun, and, you know, I still think that it's fun, but I'm not doing it because it's fun. I'm doing it to make a living. You know, this is a job. It's like the ditch digger digs a ditch to make a living, or the farmer does farming to make a living, and you know, or anybody else does their job because they want to eat and they want to have a warm place to live.
You know, it's great to hear people say, "Oh, they like my work," and it's great to get that sort of public feedback. But ultimately, it's about satisfying yourself and doing something that you enjoy, as opposed to, you know, being locked up in an office all day. You know, I'm out and around and you know, experiencing the world and expressing myself through photography.
I want it all. I want it all. I want the whole female experience in a ball. I want it all.
That good old stuff they call adrenaline that sort of gets pumping and makes you feel just a little bit sharper or a little bit more in tune. There's something for a performer called being in the moment. And for me, work on stage gives me an opportunity to exercise my brain and to train it to be present in the moment. Not to just be planning ahead or reflecting on the past, but to be very active with what's happening right here and right now, and to be able to respond with all my brain cells and all my being to exactly what's happening in that moment.
What I like about writing is that I can do it anytime. If I'm driving and I'm thinking about a play, I'm writing. If I'm having a cup of coffee and a couple next to me are talking about something and I start eavesdropping, I start thinking, oh, I could steal that idea. So in a way, I can always write.
Coi net ki was ja non na juli was always in the hoop den ski that. What did I say? You don't know. Instead of seeing them on television that the natives are always the killers, the murderers, and they never see the true native side. As I was raised in Indian reservation, and I used to notice this when I see these movies. They used to make this ugly as the Indian woman or somebody, make them cruel. That's a bunch of baloney.
You want to check the jumps in there, Chris? I'll be right back to do the editorial in a minute.
Journalism is creative in that you ask whatever questions you want to ask, you arrange your article however you want to arrange it. Different in that I think the thing about art is there's no right answers. A lot of times it's kind of whatever you want to express. But with journalism there is definitely a rule that everything has to be factual. That's the biggest difference between journalism and art. But you know, the way that you tell a story, the words that you use, and the way you arrange the facts is in art.
The sound of the trumpet, the actual sound of it, convinced me that I needed to play the trumpet. It was sort of a voice for me. It speaks to me, and it still does. So I was a trumpet player for many years, and then I realized that I needed to do other things like make vessels and make paintings and make plays. I realized more and more that I needed to make things and discover things in my life and be my own teacher.
What do you think?
Is the life of an artist the life for you?
If so, what should you do now?
If you want to be an artist, get yourself a pencil and a piece of paper and maybe some paints and start expressing yourself, and don't worry about making a mess on the piece of paper. Your job is to make 5,000 messes, and after the 5,000th one, or maybe the 4th one, whatever, you'll come up with something you didn't expect, and other people go, "Look at that, Martha, that's beautiful."
I encourage everybody to write, whether or not that's how they're going to make their money later on. There are a lot of careers that use writing where writing is not necessarily the main thing they do. So for instance, if you want to be a radio announcer, you still need to be able to write. If you want to do just about anything, you need to be able to write. So when somebody gets better at writing, no matter what they end up doing, it's going to be useful.
And I think the more you write, the better you write. It's one of these things that just practice makes, not perfect, but better.
We have some awfully good resources in Vermont. I do study voice still. There are wonderful coaches around who help you develop other parts of your voice or help you strengthen it, because singing really is a sport. And like any sport, you have to stay in shape and you have to continue training. In terms of acting, there are lots of other people in the community who have either professional or semi-professional experience. So it's an ongoing learning process.
What might smooth the way is realizing that that it is a struggle, and that it's okay that it's a struggle, and that it's still a respectable thing to do, in fact, a worthy thing to do.
It looks like there's more to art than fun and games.
It almost sounds like work.
But hey, you'll be rich and famous.
Or will you?
It's a good thing. I don't need a lot of money to be happy. Some writers do very well, but it's not there's nothing automatic about it. I don't know if there are poor doctors or poor lawyers. I don't think there are, really. I think if you get your license to practice those things, you're going to live a pretty comfortable life. But writers really don't know. They can't be sure that they're going to do well or poorly in the world.
So if I were interested in things and money, I would not be doing this. But I'm interested in other things, and so I do it. And I do survive pretty well.
So I guess Kathy's saying,
there's more to life than money.
When I'm at work, I don't want work to be over. I don't watch the clock and wish it were later. I always wish it were earlier. I wish I had more time to do my work. And I have to organize my life trying to get that time. My idea of fun is to do my work.
Some students from the high school, they were singing students of a local voice teacher, came into the Opera House to sing during Virgin's Day. They had never heard themselves in a space like this, an acoustically rich structure built over 100 years ago, and to see the look on their faces as they heard their own voices just kind of wrapping around the building and then going back to hit their own ears, it brought tears to my eyes. And I, in fact, saw a couple of the students gasping with surprise at the power and the clarity of their own voices. There was a whole generation that never had that experience, and it just really told me again why we have to have a building like this back in this community, and why we have to have the arts and a space for expression of the arts given back to the people who live here and the community that enjoys this town and calls it their own.
Art.
Something we all need.
As individuals.
And as a community.
Toward the future.
Art is humanity's reflection of itself, whether it's in painting or sculpture or music or theater or dance or whatever. It's a reflection of the human condition.
I think my job as the artist is to make you take notice of this, you know, regular stuff that generally you just wouldn't notice. You take it for granted. My job is to like go, hey, wake up.
It's like turning the corner and looking out at something, or coming around a bend and seeing something totally new, and you start things reconfigure, and the feeling is good.
It's a little bit like when something great happens to you. You want to run and tell somebody, and with art, that's sort of what you're doing. You've had something happen to you, and you want to share that with somebody.
And it really does feed your soul.
Well, I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about art.
And the life of an artist.
From some of our talented and dedicated neighbors.
Here in Addison County.
You heard what they had to say.
Now, what do you have to say? You want to be an artist?